Hi friends, my name is Erin and today I'm going to be doing a review of a series. I recently finished a trilogy and I really enjoyed all three books. They're very unique in my opinion, so I figured I would talk about it. It starts with Illuminae, which I read maybe 2 years ago. The middle book is Jomina, which I don't have. I read it on Kindle, and then I finished Obsidio a few months ago. So these are some sci-fi, I would say young adult books. It's very unique, the writing style. A lot of it is text messages back and forth. There's also different script based on different characters. There's some art in there. Sometimes you have to follow the words around the page. And overall, it's just a really fun reading experience. So I wanted to talk about it. I will try and keep it light on spoilers, so it'll be kind of just a generalization, but I am going to give a summary, a quick synopsis of all three books. It is a series and all three books are based on a different set of main characters, but they do all kind of come together. So you do need to read them in order. The first book, Illuminae, follows Ezra and Katie. They are two teens that were going to high school on an illegal space station. Basically, there is a planet where some illegal mining is going on, and the families that work there have a few cities. There's a way gate for spaceships to come in, but no one really knows that this illegal practice is going on. So Ezra and Katie, their families live there. Katie's dad is considered kind of a captain, I think, very important man. And Ezra and Katie have broken up. This happens at like the first few pages. However, things kind of change when their colony is attacked by a group that comes to basically take over. And that group says that, well, you're an illegal colony, so should we even feel bad about trying to kill everyone? In book 2, you follow Ezra and Nick. Know each other through high school, very different lifestyles, and they get a message that people are going to be coming to their jump station, and they're not really sure what's going on. When these people land at their jump station, it does not seem friendly. So Hannah and Nick have to work together. I'm not going to tell you why they're trying to take over this jump station, but it connects back to book 1 and the outcomes in book 1. So they're trying to take over this way station. Hannah and Nick are doing everything they can to sabotage this. And in book 3, you end up back on the original planet that was taken over to one of Katie's cousins who survived the initial invasion and is now working as a nurse in the enemy compound. She's kind of been recruited. The enemy is still forcing the people that survived to mine on that planet. And she runs into an ex who actually got recruited by the bad guys, basically. She's trying to decide, can I work with him? Is he going to be kind to me? Is he going to help me? Do I have to manipulate him? Like, what's my move here? So all three of these groups of people come together in Obsidio, and the way it comes together is pretty good. So let's look a little bit more deeply and see how I rate this series overall. First of all, characters. I really loved the characters. You have a lot of really strong female characters in this, including some of the side characters. You get to see a lot of that like teenage angst, if that is your thing. I really loved the snarkiness of the characters, and the way you get to see their impact of what has happened to them is done really well. They're good at explaining and conveying their emotions, and you also get to see, because it's kind of through text messages and surveillance footage, you get to see them kind of break down in different ways. So they may send a text that everything is fine, but you see them on the surveillance camera kind of curled up in a ball and caving in on themselves, but they just have to keep going. It's a very dire situation the entire time. They are fighting for their lives. It's done in a way that feels unique, and it doesn't ever get repetitive, which is sometimes my complaint when it comes to books like this, especially when you have 3 books in a row that all have teenage characters, all are going through something dire, all are building relationships and dealing with the consequences of war. It didn't ever feel like I was just reading the same book over and over again. My one complaint, and what gives it a 4 out of 5, I feel like there was a little bit too much bravado at times. And there are definitely times where the text messages come off as like really cheesy, or as like doesn't necessarily feel like the most natural thing for a teenager to be saying, I still found it really enjoyable. So I'm giving personality of the main characters a 4 out of 5. For relationships, I'm giving this a 5 out of 5. I think this is done really well, and you get to see a wide variety of relationships being built. There is a little bit of romance in every single book. There are friendships. You get to see relationships between father and daughter, between cousins, and what happens when those relationships crumble or when war comes between those relationships. So you feel the tension and the genuineness of those connections. I will say the romantic relationship in book 3 is my least favorite. None of them are super prominent. It's just kind of like flirty banter throughout the entire book as they're trying to survive. They're kind of joking with each other as a way to motivate each other to keep pushing forward almost. So aside from banter, you don't really get much as far as romance, but I feel like the setup for the relationship in book 3 was my least favorite dynamic, and I was not as invested in those two characters because of it, but I still enjoyed all of those. I think character development is where things aren't as strong. I'm giving it a 2 out of 5. The characters do become more confident. They have to make hard decisions. They have to really put their life on the line. There's not a dramatic change between the beginning and the end of the book. You know, if a character comes in super arrogant, they stay pretty arrogant throughout the whole thing, and they use that arrogance to kind of navigate. For example, Katie is a character that shows up in all 3 books, and she has, again, that same bravado throughout all 3 books. She has the same skill sets. She has the same mindset. She does have to learn some hard lessons, and her relationships are tested, and she loses people, and so you see those emotions. But as far as learning the lesson that maybe changes her in some way, those kinds of things don't really happen. The last subset in the overarching character category is side characters, and I'm giving this a 4 out of 5 as well, because some of the side characters did just feel like names thrown out there, but you really get a good look at a lot of the side characters, whether it be family members or some of the enemy. In book 3, there is a guy that is kind of a jerk, and you are just so against this guy, and then you get a chapter from his point of view, and you realize where he's coming from, what he's fighting for, why he's pushing so hard against some of your favorite characters. And it really just totally flips your opinion of him on its head almost. And so it's even harder moving past that when this side character is still pushing and is still getting caught up on the wrong side of things. And I just really love the extra attention to detail that they do give some of the side characters, where you don't just see them through the main character's point of view, but you get to know their motivations and their reasons for fighting in these wars as well. Overall, character gets a score of 15 out of 20. Let's talk about the plot. I am a plot girly. That's what I read for, and I was really invested in all 3 of these books. Starting with the timeline, I'm giving it a 4 out of 5. It was really fast-paced. It's action-packed. Because of the writing style and the type of text and formatting used, you are constantly moving. Nothing feels excessive. You're getting just enough detail without getting bogged down, and I loved that fast-paced nature. I will say I took a point off because at times the timeline of things and the way things were done could get a little bit confusing. There were times I had to go back and reread to see how something came together, and that comes a little bit with the sci-fi aspect of it, which we'll get into. I'm also giving action a 4 out of 5. A lot of the action that they took had consequences, very real consequences. You saw the main characters get hurt. You saw deaths of several people on all sides of this war. You saw the impacts of grief and the weight of the decisions on those characters. I think the fights were well described. The layout was pretty clear. The back and forth was fun. It was kind of a little bit spy-like. Sometimes they'd be crawling through the air vents and set up traps here and there. And so it was just really fun to be a part of. I will say there was a little bit too much plot armor while the main characters did get hurt at times, it felt like, you know, they were maybe getting away with a little bit too much, which didn't really take away from the action in my mind. But I do remember thinking a few times, like, how did they get away with that? How were they able to pull that off? Or maybe this wound should have kept them from being able to do this. I still really enjoyed the action-packed nature of these books. Satisfaction of the ending of all of these books, I'm giving a 4 out of 5 as well. I think all of them were very clear what was going to happen and how things were going to come about. There weren't really a lot of like twists. There were a few sprinkled here and there, but nothing you couldn't see coming. I will say sometimes the ending felt, again, a little bit like that plot armor. Like, I don't know that everyone would just agree to this, or you would be able to get all the characters in the ending scenario of this to do what just happened, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's explained clearly, but it just wasn't quite believable. I knew where they were going. I just don't know that they had the rationale maybe to get there. However, I don't think I was dissatisfied with any of the endings. I really enjoyed the way things played from one book to the other. I think it was also just me as a reader. The ending of book 2, I won't give anything away, but it pulls at a big sci-fi trope that is just not one of my favorite tropes. And so I started to see that kind of happening, and it worked fine. It just is not something that clicks with me as a reader as much. So there was nothing to be dissatisfied about. All totally made sense. Conflict, however, I'm giving a 5 out of 5. Because of the nature of the setup where you have this illegal mining happening on this planet, and then this, I honestly can't remember now if it's like a military subsect or a corporation that is coming in this invasion. You have a lot of gray area, because when you do get points of view from the people who are doing the invading, they're saying, well, look, they're not even supposed to be here. They're all criminals. Now, does that give them a right to kill? Obviously not. But you see a lot of points of view of people that are saying, I joined this cause to do good, or I was up on the space station and I didn't know the extreme stuff that was happening down here until I landed planetside. Or my family runs basically the black market on this illegal planet, so they've certainly done their fair share of killing, and now I'm battling it out for this planet. Like, you just have almost every single character is a little bit morally gray, and that really makes for some good conflict. I think when a villain has ideals and rationales that you can see how they got there, they're so much more well written than just a generic, I want to end the world kind of vibe. And I think that's where things lean here. Obviously, the people invading are the bad guys, but very few people in this story are 100% innocent. But the way this war and invasion is shaped, it just really leads to some good back and forth. So for plot, I'm giving this a 17 out of 20. And the last category is world and world building. Starting with the setting, I'm giving setting a 5 out of 5 because you do get schematics for some of the ships they're on, you get maps, you get a bit of detail about like some of the fighter jets, and so I really enjoyed that. It really helped you visualize kind of the space station that we're on. You could feel the climates in book 3 when they're in this really like cold weather where you can't step out without your suit on. The weight of the claustrophobia in some of the ships. And so the setting was vivid without being weighty, if that makes sense. You didn't get paragraphs upon paragraphs of descriptors. It was thrown in throughout, and it kind of slowly built a picture of where you were at. And that's kind of my style as a reader. Backstory is up next. I did give this a 3 out of 5. You don't get a lot of backstory on the corporation. I think it was an army. On the army that's like coming down, what led to mining on this planet. You get a little bit, but it's pretty vague. Even the backstories of some of the characters, you get a note or two about why they joined, where they were originally, their family, and who's important to them, but it's never super detailed. It's very much a story that is in the moment, and again, that's kind of what leads to that fast-paced nature of it, but you don't get as much of the backstory because of that. Okay, the last category I'm putting in this is just sci-fi, like the general sci-fi nature of these books, because they do fall in that genre. So I'm gonna try not to give anything away, and there's a few I'm going to leave out, but you do get a lot of AI, and what does it mean when that AI gets too much power? There's a lot of good, like, cool spaceships, military guns, military armor, those kinds of things. If you're interested in spaceships and jump stations, that's definitely a key component, especially in book 2. But a lot of the sci-fi elements are focused more on like being in space and the ships than maybe traveling to different planets and different alien species. You're not going to see any alien species. So I did end up giving it a 4 out of 5. It is definitely the backdrop and not the main focus, except for, I would say, in book 1, and even then it's very partnered with the invasion, and the space war is kind of the key components, but after that it is very much a setting and a weapon style sci-fi. So overall we get a 10 out of 15 here. I am going to give it a bonus, and I showed this at the beginning, but one of the things I love about these books is the writing style. It's very fun to read these. I did read book 2 on my Kindle, and I 100% would not recommend it because some of these pages are very hard to read on a Kindle formatting. But I just think it's so unique, and it makes for such an enjoyable experience. The way that this made the reading feel so much more interactive and fun, and it made it for such a quick read. This gets a 45 out of 56 on my general scale, which is going to be about a 4 out of 5. So if you like sci-fi, if you're looking for a good YA book to read, if you want something unique and fun, or if you like teenage angst in your books, any of that, I definitely think these are a good set to pick up. The books are beautiful. They're so fun to read, and it is a quick trilogy if you're looking for one. So I know these have been around for a while, but if you haven't picked them up, I'm officially recommending them. Let me know if you have read these. I would love to know what you think about Aiden. Which one of the 3 books was your favorite? I think book 1 is my favorite because it has my favorite 2 main characters, I would say. I hope you have a great day and some good reading to get done today, and I will see you all next time. Bye, friends.